And we haven't actually brought up Alfred the Butler, just who I want to shout out. Just because of that Street Fighter energy, I was like, man, there's some Vega stuff going on here.
His weapon was very cool. His weapon was very, very cool.
Yeah.
And we got introduced to it very early on.
Right. Those retracting goddamn knives. Yes, very cool.
Very, very cool.
Like, maybe that's the thing. Like, if I knew that this movie just devolved into Street Fighter from the very beginning, like if it was Hudson Hawk, the World Warrior.
Welcome to Certain POV's Another Pass podcast with Case and Sam, where we take another look at movies that we find fascinating but flawed. Let's see how we could have fixed them.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Another Pass podcast. I'm Case Aiken, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Sam Alizea.
Hi.
Sam, are you a fan of the Pink Panther?
Absolutely. Love the Pink Panther.
That's
both the cartoon and the movies.
That's fantastic, because the Pink Panther is a cartoon that I feel is a spiritual successor, or spiritual progenitor, I should say, to the movie that we're talking about today. Because today we are talking about the 1991 Bruce Willis comedy. Well, we'll call it a comedy.
The comedy.
High ice comedy, Hudson Hawk. And to have that conversation, we're joined by Jay McKiernan.
Hey, how you doing?
Jay, welcome to Another Pass. You have been on Men of Steel, and I have been on your show, Long Live the Legion. But I am so glad to get you on Another Pass.
I am so excited to be here. When I discovered this podcast, it's one of those that I've always wanted to be a part of. So thank you very much for inviting me.
Fantastic. Well, I'm glad to have you here. I'm torn about the movie that you brought this week.
Yes, I've already joked that I feel I should be handing out apology cards for forcing people to watch this movie, but I wanted to pick something that was weird and strange and doesn't get made today, and I really wanted to avoid bugs just for Sam, so I thought this was a great choice.
I really appreciate that. Really, really appreciate avoiding bugs.
But man, there's so much weirdness in this movie. I just kept on having more like oh reactions as this turned into a full-on cartoon, and it was just sort of surprising because like when I was looking at the TV tropes page, there was one note that was just like, for people who are fans of Bruce Willis' career before Die Hard versus after Die Hard. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm definitely a post Die Hard fan. Like I have next to no appreciation of anything Bruce Willis did before Die Hard. Like I just wasn't a fan of his, and I'm not saying I'm like, oh, I didn't like it. I mean, like, I just have never witnessed any of his comedy career that he had before this. And just am not, I was not prepared for a movie that harkens back to his comedy chops, in quotes, so much right there as this movie. I was like very surprised. It was just a different Bruce Willis than I was used to. But from the perspective of like his career, if you actually like were really watching it, it's like, oh, I guess that makes sense that he would take this with such a tongue-in-cheek kind of performance.
Yeah, I think this is a labor of love for him. Like, I don't know how much the audience knows about the background, but basically Bruce Willis had been wanting to make this movie for years and years after he became buddies with a guy who actually wrote a song called Hudson Hawk, Robert Kraft. And so he'd kind of promised them that as soon as he became big, he was going to make this. And so, yeah, it's nothing like Die Hard. I don't even know if it's a lot like Moonlighting. Like, it's like when you mentioned Bruce Willis's previous career, like, I mean, his comedy chops on Moonlighting, I don't even think this is close to that, because Moonlighting was all sharp, crisp dialogue and this witty repartee. My mouth isn't working today, between him and Sybil Shepherd, and that's not this movie. Like, this movie is, like you mentioned, Pink Panther. It's Pink Panther. It's Rocky and Bullwinkle. It's Our Man Flint. It's kind of nothing like anything Willis had ever done or would do again.
Well, it makes sense that would do again, like after the reception of this movie.
Yes.
But yes, it is true that it doesn't quite to anything that he's ever done beforehand, as far as I can tell, because again, I know it mostly by reputation as opposed to having actually directly witnessed. So that's just an interesting part there. Yeah, I had no idea what to expect when I put this movie on. Like, I'd heard the name of this movie, and I was like, oh yeah, it's a Bruce Willis movie. And in the back of my mind, I was like, is this the one people say is like a decent Die Hard movie that didn't have Die Hard branding? Because like there is a movie, and I can't remember which one it is. It's not this one. It's not this movie. But that may have set me up for like a weird perspective of this movie before we go.
Yeah, and I think if you had gone into this movie expecting Die Hard, you would have. I mean, if you would have been like everybody who saw this movie when it came out in 1991, because it was sold like Die Hard as a thief. And then as soon as people went to see it in the theater, they were stunned that it was nothing like Die Hard.
No.
Yeah. It's, I mean, it was a movie that I think was dead before it hit the box office because of all the bad press that it got. And then they tried their best to kind of say, hey, we've got Bruce Willis, star of Die Hard, and the producer is Joel Silver, and they can, list off all of his action films at this point. And then you watch this and it's not an action film.
Right.
And there's action.
Oh, yeah, there's definitely
slapsticky action. This movie is also much more violent than I remembered it being, because I did see it when I was a kid and the slapstick stayed in my head, but the violence did not. People get blowed up in this movie. Like, and I don't mean blown up. I mean blowed up. Like, it is like the worst, ridiculous, like silliest amount of violence. Like, the Roadrunner and Coyote would be so proud of them, just blowing each other up.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the big, like, the tonal shifts in the movie are something like you mentioned the violence. Like, if it had just been slapstick, I think it would have kind of worked. And then there's also a beheading just in the middle of nothing, and you're like, how does this fit? Yeah, and yeah, when the auctioneer blows up and it's this huge kind of almost joke scene. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it can figure out, is this an R-rated action movie or is this a Pink Panther movie? Like, it kind of jumps all over the place.
Yeah, and I think it gets into the thing that I just am frustrated by in general in this movie, which is that no one's good at their jobs. Like, no one is good at their jobs. Like, even Bruce Willis's character, like even the Hudson Hawk is not like a particularly good thief. And it frustrates me because there's like parts of it that are like almost good, like I like the fact that they are able to time their thievery to songs because they know perfectly how long each of these songs takes to sing if you sing it appropriately in the right beat. But the way they pull off all of their crimes is like not particular, like it's very like by the skin of their teeth, it like pulled off and not particularly like. It's so frustrating to me, like the tape sequence where they roll it back and it's like there's no surveillance whatsoever like in order to like make sure that the taping actually like is a good time to do it or anything like that. And then they proceed to just rob it without masks or gloves, if I remember correctly, but definitely without masks.
Oh, no gloves.
Yeah. And I remember just distinctly thinking like, man, there's so much evidence in play here. Yeah. The no gloves was bothering me while I was watching it. And like the whole thing just was like, isn't he supposed to be like this like great cat burglar? Like, and he's bad at this. And then the ex-CIA guys are all like bumbling buffoons. Like everyone in this movie is so bad. Even Leonardo da Vinci is somehow like kind of like at the very least, like, in a comedic scene, and I mean he fucks up in the sense that he like was trying to make something that turned lead into bronze and like instead made something that turned lead into gold. And that, okay, so sure, all right, so even he's a fuck up. Like everyone's a fuck up in this movie.
Well, the right fuck up for that is like bronze is an alloy. It's not a naturally existing metal unless my grade 12 science class was lying to me. So like even if even if he's trying to build bronze, there's easier, like you can't just do it from lead. So like that whole premise was broken. But ironically enough, like the director of this movie, Michael Lehman, like he said, we didn't want anything to make sense. Like we purposefully broke stuff. So you'd be watching it going, well, that's dumb, that's dumb, that's dumb, that's dumb, because that was the kind of movie they were making. So like, for example, like you mentioned the no gloves, the no masks. I mean, they're singing while they're stealing something. So like, they're obviously making noise as they're going, right? And then so like everything is just, none of this is supposed to make sense. Like they're good cat burglars in the same way. We'll go back with the Pink Panther reference. They're good cat burglars in the same way that Inspector Clouseau is a good detective.
Right.
So they're going to win at the end, but yeah, they're incompetent buffoons. Like I agree. Everybody in this movie is bad at their job. Right. But at least it's consistent. Like at least there's not one person who's like, there's the only good person. Like everybody's horrible, which is, I guess it's just part of the conceit of the movie. You just have to accept this is dumb. Like I'll go one further. And this is one that bugs me every time I watch this. When they go to the auction, the guy walks out with the horse, no gloves on his hands, and just puts it down, and then Andy McDowell walks up, picks it up, no gloves, and it's like this is a piece of art that's worth, I mean, what did they end up bidding on it? Like $100 million, and they're just
absurd numbers.
They're just treating it like it's just they're treating it like it's a paperweight. But that's the movie. The movie is just, they don't care. But I get your irritation with this. Like I understand. It's one of those things. And this is, I think, when we talk about like making our suggestions or making our passes, this is one of the problems with the movie, is that when you're making these tonal shifts and you're trying to figure out what you're trying to be, like at no point do they kind of make it clear, like this is what they're breaking, or we're just going to break everything. And I don't know how they, I mean, we can talk about how they can fix it, but yeah, I agree. Like you watch this and, I mean, why is Andy McDowell playing an Italian nun?
Right. Yes. God. I have so many questions about this movie. I think this movie might break me on this.
So hopefully I will have as many answers as I can possibly come up with. So because like my history of this movie is, I saw this in the theater. I saw it in 1991 after I had heard that it was supposed to be horrible. So I went in going, okay, I'm going to watch a crappy movie. And I genuinely enjoy watching it for all of its stupidity. So I know that's a horrible thing an embarrassing thing to admit, but it's this movie entertains me for its stupidity. And maybe it's the same reason I like watching, all those old Pink Panther movies that don't make any sense.
No, I mean, like I understand liking a movie that is dumb for the sake of it being dumb. Like, and I like that's the other part of it, which is like by the very end, when it's like when Danny Aiello is like comes back and like they're like, oh, that makes sense. You must have like and like where it's so over the top, because apparently they even like cut lines to that were like them not believing this bullshit. But it felt like something out of like a Shakespearean farce. And I, at that point, was like, okay, I am more here for this level of just like, we can't even believe this bullshit. Like that the movie is in on it as well. But man,
okay, so I'm gonna give you a little bit of background info to break your brain on this. So another reason why I picked this movie is because it gave me a chance to go back and reread this book called With Nails, and it's Richard E. Grant's on-set diaries from the beginning of his career. Now, Richard E. Grant plays Darwin Mayflower in this, and in this book, he actually spends an entire chapter talking about the behind the scenes of Hudson Hawk. So to give you an idea of how insane this movie is, Aiello was supposed to die. That was the end of the movie. He was not supposed to come back. And basically, because the movie was just a complete shit show, and everybody is adding in like, this is what I think we should do. This is what I think we should do. Aiello basically went in and said, you know what? I shouldn't die. Like I should be there in the finale. And they just So, they went away, rewrote the ending, boom, okay, you're back in. Like that's this movie. There is, like, they don't care about logic. They don't care if things make sense. Shakespearean farce is probably too nice of a way to describe this. Richard Grant describes it as a high school theater production where everybody's throwing ideas out and everyone says, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's do that. Because nothing was ever a no. It's so a lot of this stuff that doesn't make sense. That's why. It looks like I've broken your brain with that. So
I don't think that this movie is supposed to be a movie that works with a functioning brain. And I will be honest, this movie is like, so I watched this with my husband. My husband loves a lot of Hong Kong films that were made in the 90s. And this movie, kind of tonally, is a lot like those movies where you have like insane slapstick comedy with insane violence, where like there are all sorts of tricks happening, where like sometimes you're like, how did we get here? I mean, honestly, the giggle that came out of me when the truck pulled up, like, so they have to, spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen this. So they're trying to get out of a situation, and so a truck pulls up, an ambulance pulls up, and then a truck is in front of them for the ambulance to like kind of go inside of. And I saw the seal, and I was like, oh, it was the Vatican. The Vatican. So it was like, oh, it's the Catholics. And my husband was like, oh yeah, good call. It's just like such weird tickling moments for me. It's just like, what else is this movie gonna throw against the wall? And it just, yeah, the only thing I was just like was like, how high were people when they wrote this? Because that's what it felt like to me. Like every moment it was just like, it'd be hilarious if it's the CIA, some rich billionaire dude, and also the Vatican fighting over these codes. And that would be amazing. This movie's ridiculous. And I think you just have to stop looking for logic. Like, I think by like, maybe like by the time we got to Rome, my brain was like, and now we shut off. And now we just enjoy the hijinks because this movie makes no sense. Yeah. I
yeah.
thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah. And the crazy part is that we have a Louvre robbery in this, and as soon as I got to Rome, I put a note in my notes. I just wrote the password was Louvre. We have a Louvre robbery that actually like puts more effort into it than what the real world one that just happened.
Yeah.
Was.
Actually, Greg was like, well, that's going to be the easiest one yet. Why they make that number 3?
So like there is a part of it where it's like truth is stranger than fiction to a certain degree.
Mm-hmm.
When looking at this, like sometimes the real world can be just as farcical, if not more so, than that. So I can't say that this isn't too realistic or too unrealistic because there is that. I guess where my brain is like is cracking is that like, okay, yeah, no, like once we get into just like how not technically improvisational, but like almost improvisational this movie is. Well, one, it kind of feels like a D&D game in the way that it's sort of like where the game, like the sessions kind of like spiral out because like the DM is just like figuring out shit to like throw at the players, and it just like it's more and more absurd as it goes. But two, like it's impressive that they land the ship at all. And I find myself disliking the movie less as I think about it. And like it, and so I'm kind of falling into this, like, is this so bad it's good? Which is where Jay's coming from.
This is the magic of this film. And pretty much almost all of those Hong Kong movies I was talking about. It's like, there is a magic to the nonsensical kind of beats. I mean, honestly, Halo's right. Him just showing up on a donkey, that actually like creates such a beautiful symmetry for this film that would not have happened, because in the very first scene, right, there's a guy at a donkey while they're giving the narration about this invention, and he's going there and he yells at the inventor and stuff like that. So him showing back up, I was like, oh my god, this is a full circle moment. I love this. And the fact that he was like, yeah, it was airbags, it was this, it was that, and he's like, yeah, that's probably what happened. They are taking a piss out of everything. They're like, yeah, we're not going to explain this. He's just not dead. And actually, I was really happy he wasn't dead because I was really sad when he died. So I was just like, oh, good. They gave him back to us. Thank you, silliest movie in the world.
Yeah, I agree with you. The ending. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, go on.
No, I was just going to say, I think killing Aiello was a horrible mistake. And if they'd left him dead, it would have not, I can't say ruined the movie, but like, you're exactly right. Like the ending is better because he comes back, even though it makes no sense. And at the end of the day, in a movie like this, it doesn't have to.
Right. I mean, because I think also like, they're walking out and she's like, do you want a coffee? And I'm like, wait. We're not going to deal with like the loss of any friends or anything that happened. We're just going to go on with our lives. She's left the order. Has she told the Vatican? Like she's decided to give up on her. God wants me to watch over here. And we're just going to ignore all the trauma the two of you just went through. You just you basically blew a hole in a castle that was supposed to be Da Vinci's castle. Like, technically, you went against the CIA, a billionaire. You just murdered a bunch of people. Nothing. And then it was fine because then their friend showed up. Because I was like, at least feel bad for your friend. And it was fine because he was alive. And it was a tonal shift that was ridiculous, but made me feel better. So it was good.
Yeah, you have to have the happy ending for something like this. So
yeah, I was like very surprised when I thought like, oh, did they actually kill him? Oh, geez. Like,
yes. Like, and when you see the explosion, you're like, oh no, there's like no way he's gonna make it out. Like
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like what was it when was when Isaac Hayes left South Park and they had to like kill Chef like as like hardcore as they could, and then they still like brought him back in like the Darth Vader Chef mode at the very end of that. But speaking of weird pivots of just absurd sci-fi bullshit, you know what I did not expect this movie to be surprisingly similar to, and that is the goddamn Street Fighter movie. Like there is so much like borderline Street Fighter imagery in the last third of this movie. Like
same writer.
Is it the same writer?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
You're talking Street Fighter, Jean-Claude Raul
Yeah, the Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yeah, Steven D'Souza wrote the first draft of this script and wrote and directed Street Fighter. And I'm sad that I know this, but this is part of my life.
I did not predict that. I did.
Yep. And I think that's why there's such a tonal shift, because D'Souza did the first draft and he's got a certain sense of humor, but he's also very direct with action. And then they brought in this guy, Daniel Waters, who wrote Heathers. I don't know if you've ever watched that. And if you haven't, it's an amazingly good movie. And that's why he got this job. He also wrote Demolition Man. So you can take whatever you want with that. And then that's where and I think that's where a lot of the comedy came. And I think having these two different guys, that's why you get these two different tones. Sorry, are we just breaking your brain today?
A little bit. Like this is what happens when I don't like click on the Wikipedia article for the screenwriter. Like mostly because I took the like Bruce Willis story by credit as being like, oh, well, that's where the insanity comes from. I didn't stop to like think that like, oh, the Street Fighter writer is also here. And to be fair, he has a much more prolific career. Like he's got a bunch of notable works here. But Jesus H Christ, like, this movie is insane.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you get like the number of people involved in this, the amount of talent, like it is crazy. Just to kind of, I'm going to deep dive this, and I apologize if I get too into the weeds for the listeners. Like, the two directors of photography that they have, the first one basically shot every single Paul Verhoeven film. So he shot Starship Troopers, which was a great episode on this podcast if you haven't checked it out. And then he quit because the movie was so insane, and they brought in another guy who's like just as respected, just as talented. So it's not like it's a bunch of schmoes making this movie. Like at every single point, it's these big name talented people who've just come together and are like, let's make the weirdest movie of the last 50 years. Why not?
Yeah, it does feel very much like everyone's on board for the camp part of it, because it has that vibe where everyone's giving a little too much to the camp, like where it doesn't have that editorial hand, like someone pulling back on it slightly. Because I keep circling back to this vision I have. Jay, are you familiar with the Stainless Steel Rat sci-fi series?
I'm not, no.
Actually, I should get both of you. Sam, are you familiar with it?
No.
So Stainless Steel Rat is a series of sci-fi novels about the protagonist who is a con man in the future. His nickname, the Stainless Steel Rat, is because even in a world that is entirely stainless steel, like a really good rat can find its way through like the cracks and can make its way. One thing I love about it is that it is a hilarious series, but the characters are all actually like really good at their jobs. And so it's a scenario that like everything gets like more and more absurd. There's like so many jokes about Esperanto, for example, in it, because it's supposed to be a future that everyone has sort of like figured out what language is preferred. And that's Esperanto, the Omni language. He is very good at being a con man. And he is very good at being a con man for good. Like he gets, at the beginning of the series, he gets enlisted by like a shadowy government agency kind of thing that operates having con men out there for the purpose of doing like solving problems that need to be solved extrajudiciously. And at the same time, like, what's a little bit of crime? It's not a big deal. And I keep coming back to that as being like my archetype for like what I kind of wished this movie was, and what I think the audiences would have kind of preferred from a Bruce Willis property coming off of Die Hard, where like if he was a particularly capable thief in a scenario where like the absurdity that he's facing, he's the straight man up against it. But in this, he's like a little bit too slapsticky as well. And I think people just wanted him to be the straight man against it.
Yeah, I think it was, I don't even know if it's people wanted him to be the straight man. I think people wanted him to be John McClane. And then when he didn't do that, I think they could have gone like one of the types of movies that they refer to as like an inspiration are the old like Bob Hope, Bing Crosby movies of these two guys who are kind of in over their heads and they're cracking jokes, and one's the funny one and one's the straight one. And I think if they had leaned into that with Willis and Aiello, although I don't know who would have been the straight one and who would have been the funny one, but I think if they had leaned more into that and just said like, no, we're not doing McClane, like we're doing something different. But I think I agree with you. Like, I think if the thefts, well, I always go with this. I think this movie you will like this movie if you buy the singing while they're stealing stuff. And if that irritates you, don't watch the movie, right? But if you're in for like, okay, this is crazy. So I don't know if they needed to be good thieves, but I think they needed to be smart. Can I give that difference? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Like, and I think that was where it kind of like, if the two of them had been smart thieves, like you mentioned earlier, like they escape everything by the seat of their pants. Like if that first robbery, there had been zero problems. Like they were in and out, done, and they're still singing and they're still being goofy and whatever. But, to kind of go to what you said, they're wearing gloves, or we're getting some sort of Mission Impossible kind of thing where we're like, oh, these guys are both really, really talented. I think that would have been better than, they just kind of seem to goof around and they just get lucky that they get out.
Yeah, certainly in terms of like what the audience wanted.
Yeah. Well, I don't think they cared what the audience wanted when they were making this movie.
No.
Like I think and again, going back to Richard Grant's diaries, like this movie, they cared about what one person wanted. Right. So this was a movie that was made for Bruce Willis. He controlled every aspect of this. And that was the only person they were trying to make happy. And this shows you what Bruce Willis's taste in movies is like.
Yeah, this also takes me back to, have you guys watched An Evening with Kevin Smith?
Yes.
Yes.
And I'm not sure if it's volume 1 or volume 2, but he has a story about working on Cop Out where he talks about Bruce Willis time and sort of paints Willis as something of a diva, which just sort of goes along with that and talking about this movie.
I could tell about 20 stories from the diaries of diva behavior. And yeah, this doesn't shock me in the slightest. Like it is, I mean, everything is done to make him happy. Let's keep Bruce happy. And the rest of them are just there to kind of support him.
Yeah, man, you broke my brain with the fact that the Street Fighter parallels were actually like, that's just fucking with me.
Anytime I can break a brain, I think I've done my job. So
I legitimately was just like, man, it's really weird how many like Street Fighter type scenes are going on at the very end of this movie, because it's at this castle. It very much feels like the Cammy stage from Super Street Fighter 2. And not only is it the fact that like there were this many Street Fighter things and that it's the same director, but that you knew that off the top of your head. Like you fired off, like there was no, like listeners, there's no edit that shortened the gap in time. He just like immediately was like, same director. And I just knew that.
Same writer, different director, but yes.
Writer, pardon me. Same writer, pardon me.
That's how broken his brain is right now. He can't even keep that straight.
So one of my hidden talents that I try not to show off is a insanely crazy knowledge of movies from say 1980 to 2002, where I know this bizarre trivia that I shouldn't know. And I wish I didn't. So like, I know that Steven D'Souza did this, but I couldn't tell you like 2 of my 3 brothers' birthdays. That's where my brain works. So it's not something that I'm going to brag about, but it's just there. Yeah.
So I can relate. So, like Christ. But man, that's still, like I said, just like kind of breaking my brain on this one. So thing I really liked about this movie, when Hawk gets out initially and ILO picks him up. Sorry, I'm not gonna, what is it? Five Tone. Tommy
yeah.
Five. Yeah. Regardless. Anyway, so and they're driving and he's like, are you gonna do blankety blank? And it's some actual thing, or then, and it's euphemism for sex, and then blankety blank or euphemism for sex, blankety blank or euphemism for sex. And he goes, play Nintendo or something blow or something, like I said, some not even euphemism, just like, straight on like innuendo. I like that Hawk was like, what's a Nintendo? And I like that because it does actually fit correctly in this whole scenario of, if he was in jail for 10 years, he would be cut off from those kind of societal changes. And that's a real thing that afflicts prisoners who get out of jail. Like today, like imagine like if you were in jail for 20 years, like you went into jail before the advent of the iPhone. And now you have to like look at the world through this completely changed like paradigm of like interaction of things. Just today, I had a whole situation where my phone was starting to run out of battery, and I was like, I need this to get to the train station, and I need to get onto my train and have them scan my ticket. Like I can't have my phone run out of battery. And that was just the core function of me being able to function was based on my phone having power. And that was for these disparate things that would have been paper back in the day.
Right.
So just to say, I do really like the whole, like, him being a prisoner, him having this like this foreign component of like understanding the world or not understanding this aspect of the world. And then we get the callback at the end where he uses it as innuendo, which is fine. Like it was fine to do a callback, and him using it as innuendo is fine. Netflix and chill works just as well. So it makes enough sense. But like I said, I just kind of like that detail. Like, and it kind of makes me wish that they were more conscientious of the type of character that they could have been building.
Yeah. I mean, I think of that scene they did in their restaurant where it's the two of them, and it's actually a dramatic scene where they're arguing about whether they're going to steal this thing or what's going to happen. And it's this really nice scene between, I mean, you can argue whether you think Bruce Willis is a good actor or not. I think Danny Aiello is a really good actor. It's really well done. And it kind of goes to your point. Like, there was a lot of stuff they could have done. Here's a guy who's just gotten out of prison and they're going to make him steal again. And he's obviously not happy about this. And we get, and you know, there is sort of a broader topic there. But of course, then we get right back into the, you know, I mean, that's, you know, a minute removed from them smacking a guy in the head with a wine bottle. So,
right.
Yeah, it's tough. I wanted to ask this kind of to go with like references and sort of dated references, because you mentioned the Nintendo, the cappuccino references.
Oh, I have notes about hating it because they set out first with like you and your girly drink or whatever, and then like it and this is probably partially because it really they hit it in before I was like settled into this world being like very over the top, where like then the Frank Stallone like shoots out the coffee cup for the gag number 2. Gag number 3,
the bullet just goes nowhere too. Like, it hits the cup and doesn't hit anyone.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Like,
it just explodes.
Well, that's
they
what
should have had someone
do.
dropping in the background. That would have been great. They should have had someone drop in the background. Just like,
I think that, yeah.
They didn't.
But again, it's another funny bit, like you mentioned about like all the changes when he gets out of prison. He walks into that bar and he immediately, it's not what he recognizes. It's full of yuppies.
Yeah, it's like 90s cocktail culture, like
the
TGI Friday or late 80s cocktail culture, really. Like,
right. And again, they could have had this nice serious moment where just let him drink his cappuccino, but no, they've got to have they've got to go right back to the gags, right? Like, we can't waste any time. Yeah, I mean, to me, what's funny about that is like in 1991, when this movie came out, for a lot of people, nobody knew what a cappuccino was. And I know that sounds insane to say in 2025, but they were worried nobody would get that reference. Nobody would understand it was a coffee drink.
I was thinking about that because there's a bunch of things like that in this movie. Yeah. Like sushi's also sort of treated that way in this movie. Yeah, like just when it's like, oh, I need exact change for the toll booth, when I was thinking like everything is easy pass now, like or some variant of it. Yeah, like there were so many just like little moments where I'm like, oh, not only is this like the past, but it's like it's a moment in history that was like even kind of struggling with like its position in modernity. Like, being 1991, it feels like it's on the cusp of the 90s, but it hasn't actually like fully broken through into being the 90s yet. I guess what I'm saying is that it's the Bush administration.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're still taking shots at Reagan America, like when he goes into the bar, but I mean, that would be gone probably within a year or two.
Right.
They're still treating all of this foreign stuff as something weird and strange. But and again, like, Starbucks doesn't explode for another 2 years, I think. I mean, I know it's crazy to say. It's, at the time, it was, you know, seeing a Starbucks was rare in 1991, but fast forward 2 or 3 years, they're everywhere.
Right.
So yeah, it's you're right. Like, it's very much, it's really showing its age in a lot of these moments.
Yeah, it's just shockingly like specific to when it came out.
Yeah.
All right, what did y'all think about the opening scene with Da Vinci? Because like it feels like something out of Monty Python.
I don't want to jump in, Sam, if you have something.
I'm like trying to like. Well, I mean, like, I don't know. For me, the opening scenes kind of feel like 1991 to me. Like, I know that like feels weird, but like I don't know that feels different than any other movie doing like semi-historical silly stuff in the early 90s to me. Like it doesn't necessarily feel super Python to me. It just kind of feels like it actually feels more Princess Bride to me, actually. Like there's like
Sure, the way that it's shot, and actually maybe that's part of it, which is that. So when I was watching it initially, because I didn't know what the movie I was watching was. It made me mad, and it felt like an unnecessary insert that was like sort of constructed in a weird way. And maybe I wish that it was more truly Monty Python, so that it would clue me in that this is supposed to be a farce.
See, what I was thinking. So here's more behind the scenes crap that I remember. So the guy who does the narration, his name's William Conrad, and he did the narration for Rocky and Bullwinkle, which is why they hired him to do the narration for this movie. And all I was thinking as we were thinking about how to improve this movie, I would have animated that whole sequence and made it feel like a Rocky and Bullwinkle movie. And then, like you're saying, I didn't have a clue what I was watching, so I'm getting angry. If I'm getting a minute and a half of animation in sort of this very silly style, that might have been more of a clue for you for what's happening. So I didn't get a Monty Python thing. I just got a missed opportunity. Like they could have done something with this. But I agree, Sam.
I really like that. I really like that. Let's save that for pitch territory. But I really like that now that you suggested that way. That helps that issue a lot for me, actually.
So, but Sam, I think it's a great point. Like it's very a product of the time. Like you do. I'm trying to think of other.
I mean, there's other like I can't think of them like off the top of my head, but like between like the mid 80s and the early 90s, there was a lot of like narration into the past. I mean, actually, I think it's like more Mel Brooks. Like if I think about it, like History of the World, like
okay, yeah, you know what? That's more accurate. Yes,
it feels more that than I would say Monty Python, because like Monty Python has a very very specific like feel and rhythm to it, but this feels more kind of like run of the mill, like, and now we open a book and we go into history, and like, so to me it's like more the feeling of kind of those kind of films, like a Mel Brooks film, or like even Princess Bride. Like you have like this like introduction fairy tale book kind of like thing. I mean, like there were also a lot of like silly films like this in the late 80s, early 90s. Like I think like I used to love this one. I used to watch it too often. Johnny Dangerously with Michael Keaton. Like that movie was also ridiculous and terrible. And that
no, that's not terrible. Come on.
Well, well, I mean, again, I said I really liked it, but like just because you like something doesn't mean it's actually good. And I feel like this movie kind of stands in the long tradition of kind of offbeat, ridiculous things. And I think even in that one, it had a little bit of narration like this. Not quite as direct as this one, because this is a literal storybook. But yeah, no, I feel very Mel Brooks about it. Not yeah, but it feels of its time. Like it feels very like when I started watching it, I was like, yeah, this feels like something I would have watched around when I was like 10, So
mm-hmm. No, the Mel Brooks comparison is really good, and now like helps me kind of shape like the tone that I kind of would like some of this to have more of.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I was actually going to say your reference to Johnny Dangerously, like the one thing that Johnny Dangerously did that this movie doesn't is it was just nonstop jokes. So it's just boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
And so like, I think if it had been that style, and even if the jokes aren't working, at least you're just hammering them over the head with it. And I think that's another thing. Like when I say like things I don't like about this movie, there's huge stretches of it where they give up that it's a comedy, or they just, okay, we're not a comedy now, we're going to do something else. Whereas
Yeah.
they could have done both. And I'll give you an example of where it worked when they did both. The ambulance chase,
Yeah.
which I really liked. I think it's one of the best parts of the movie, and it keeps the comedy running through the whole thing. So you know that it's a comedy, but it's still this really big set piece action sequence. You know, I mean, he sucks on the cigarette and tosses it away. Oh, menthol.
Menthol, yeah.
It's a dumb joke, but it's like you're still entertained by it. And the guy with all this, you know, with all the needles shoved in his face. Like there's all of these gags that are going on. And I thought if the movie had hit that, it would have been so much better than how a lot of it doesn't work.
Yeah. Like more Kit Kat, less dramatic moments.
Yes.
Yeah. More Kit Kat, less Butterfingers.
Oh, Butterfingers offered to rape them, and I was like, I actually rewound and turned on the closed captions so that I could tell. Like, I was like, wait, did he say that? I was like, no, have to rewind, have to turn this on, have to see that he actually said that. And he did. And then they gave him a children's book to read out loud to stop him from his terrible violent thoughts. I was like, that's a line that didn't need to exist. Could have said anything else. Anything, Butterfingers, anything.
1991, where the height of comedy was a stupid rape joke. Yeah, it's an uncomfortable moment. But I actually like the actor, and I like having that stupid sort of character. It's just they gave him the worst lines, and they gave him, like, if they just had him doing the "yep, coach," like he has no clue what's going on and he thinks he's in a football game, I think you could have had a lot of fun with that. But they just didn't. Yeah, they didn't do a lot with him. So
I actually think when he came back, it was like, I think they betrayed us, and he had like all the arrows. I was like, oh, this is a good scene. This is who he should have been like the whole time, you know?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. This movie is uncomfortably crass in some spots, and this might be just a part of it being 1991. But like, for example, when they have "that's a lot of Wong numbers" joke, when the security guards are like looking at the phone book to keep themselves entertained, they have the musical sting. It is like the dun 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 dun, and like that was the spot that I was like, that I'm very uncomfortable with that. Right?
Do you want to know the worst part of that?
Go ahead.
Okay, so I hate to admit this. So I have the DVD of this movie, and I watched some of the director's commentary. He's proud of that. He's happy that's in the movie. And I'm like, I watched it and I'd completely forgotten. And they do that, and I was like, ooh. And then I went back and I rewatched the director's commentary, and he's like, isn't this awesome? Like, we did this. And I'm like, yeah, I hope you recorded this 30 years ago.
Right. And like, like admittedly, it's 1991, but also it's 1991.
Yeah. I also really hated like the dog going after his man bits, and the joke that he made that was like, oh, it was just getting good. Like, and I know it was like false bravado, but I was like, bro, that's just not, no, we don't say that about dogs and animals, and that's weird, Bruce Willis. That is not a funny joke. That is not cool.
But nobody was going to tell him it wasn't a funny joke.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. It just feels like so much yes men sort of energy.
Yeah. Like I'm sure he did that, and I'm sure it was improv, and I'm sure everyone looked at him and said, oh, that's so funny. That's awesome. And a lot of movies in the 80s and 90s, when you go back and rewatch them, and you have guys who aren't as funny as they think they are, and you watch this and you go, why is this in this film? Like, why did it make the cut? And you realize, I mean, perfect example, every single time Sylvester Stallone tries to be funny, it's you're like, who, like, why was there not somebody there going, this is not good? Like, that's why you hire a comedy writer. Like, it's really simple.
Yeah. That honestly is like my biggest note about this movie. Like, if the script, like, I hate the writing, like the actual, like, one-liners and so forth in this. It, like, if they had someone who just like went through and did like a writing pass of just like punching up the jokes and just like putting it, like making the dialogue sharper, this movie would be so much more of what it could be. And the fact of the matter is, like, I just like find myself generally disliking all the characters just because they're not particularly good at being as funny as they should be.
So that's why I think some of them, like, I think those scenes with, and I mean, I'm completely guessing on this, like Sandra Bernhard's a genuinely funny person. And I think she's doing as much as she can with this. Mm-hmm. And the script might be letting her down, or based on the stories I've heard, she's hating every moment of this job. So she's just trying to get through it. Richard Grant is overacting to the extreme and having a blast with it. But I think every time you see Willis and Aiello, they're doing whatever they want and nobody's telling them to stop. And I don't even think a writing pass would have solved it. Like, they're ignoring the script. They're just, we're funny, we're going to do this. And nobody could say, you're not.
Yeah.
Like, and the reality of it is, has there ever been a moment in your life where you watched a Danny Aiello movie and said, wow, he's a comedic genius. Like, he's so funny. Or, wow, he would have been great in like a Judd Apatow movie. Like, that's never occurred to me. That is not his wheelhouse. But in this movie, he's acting like he's like the best improviser to come off Second City.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and I'd say the same thing about Willis. I think he's really funny when people give him the lines, but I don't think, I mean, it's a skill that I just don't think he has. Whereas if you had put, I mean, I'm trying to think of like, if you would say, say for this movie, it had been, let's see, who's a comedian in the 90s? Because I've got to go back. And so if this had been, say, like Eddie Murphy and Bill Murray, and you're like, okay, the two of you can just riff like mad, you leave them alone.
Right.
That's not these two guys. Right. And by the way, much better movie, I think, if it's Eddie Murphy and Bill Murray.
I know. Like, that's. Thank you for saying Eddie Murphy, because like I was thinking Murphy in terms of just like, man, I wish that he would do like the writing pass on this one, like.
Yeah, or like any SNL guys, like bring a couple of guys who had been working at SNL and just say like, okay, we just want you to, or I think in the early 90s, like Patton Oswalt was doing this. Like, he was another guy. I'm like, bring him in. I think he would fit the comedy on this. Let him just punch up the script. But instead, nothing would have saved it. Like, on the set, it's literally Willis going, let's try this. And then they've got to relight everything and reshoot it. And they all think they're the smartest guys in the room and they're the funniest guys in the room. So is it bad that like my first another pass is to remove the guy who's the reason why the movie got made?
I know, that's the problem. I know, like that. And that's like, legitimately, this is the thing that we tackle with when we talk about a movie. Like, this is just like when we did Judge Dredd. And it's like, so who could convince Stallone to just say like, maybe the helmet stays on for more of the movie? And
nobody,
like, and nobody could, I
think I was going to say, I had one more question because it sounded like you're going to wrap up, and I just wanted to get both of your takes on Andie MacDowell drugged, pretending to be a dolphin while they're trying to interrogate her. Thoughts?
So in general, I liked Andie MacDowell's character. Like, the fact that she was generally competent and able, so I will take it back. She, I guess, was the most competent character in this movie, which is fitting.
True.
Yeah, like, she was able to generally save herself from situations. Now, she did end up being damseled quite a few times, but like, again, she was able to like pull herself out of most of the situations, and then like had decent one-liners in there. I
mean, there's some strange stuff, but I think that was the script itself, like,
right. Yeah. Like, I also have some like Catholic trauma to work out when dealing with this movie, because I grew up like super Catholic, and like, there's just like points there where it's just like, like like the light up crucifix intercoms.
They're watching you, Case. They're watching you.
All right, so this is this. I was also brought up super Catholic, so let's not turn this into a support group at this point. But I know what you're saying. There's those moments where you're like, yeah, this is awkward.
Right.
I just wanted to say, so picture Andy McDowell. She is the third person they hired for this. The first one, Isabella Rossellini. So now picture her doing this movie. And I can't. It breaks my brain. Like, I can't picture her doing this farce. The second actress they picked, Mariska Detmers, who's I think a Dutch actress, and she, luckily for her, had an injured back and couldn't do it. And I don't think she's maybe done one or two English language movies, so I don't know how she does this dialogue. And then before they hired Andy McDowell, they actually reached out to Madonna. And picture her now doing this kind of.
Yeah, I really can't picture Madonna.
No. So basically they had no lead actress and they were already filming, and they're just reaching out to everybody like, who's willing to come do this. And I really think Andy McDowell was the only one to say yes, like everybody else, or they threw a ton of money at her. I give her credit on this. I mean, how many movies have you seen Andy McDowell in where you go, wow, for a model, like, she's good at standing there and looking pretty and not really bringing a ton to this, but she committed. Like you mentioned before, how everybody's maybe went too far into the farce and the camp. She's like, I'm going to go all the way. I understand this is a dumb, silly movie and I'm just going to lean into it.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of give her, she was actually one of my favorite parts of the movie, which I don't know if I've ever said that about an Andy McDowell movie before. Like, I think of like Groundhog Day, where it's a great movie, but I mean, you could have replaced her with a dozen actresses, and I don't think the movie changes. You can disagree.
That's fair.
Yeah, like, whereas this one, like, she's in a lot of scenes, she's the best part of the scene. Like, she's, and I'm like, wow, she can do comedy. Like, maybe not as well as a lot of other, but like, she's holding her own against a lot of really good actors. And that's another part. There's really good actors in this movie and a lot of supporting roles.
I know the cast is shockingly stacked.
Yeah. Like, you have a young David Caruso who nobody knew, who's stealing scenes left and right. You've got James Coburn, who's just, I loved him in every scene he's in. He's just like the coolest guy in the room. And which is not good, because Bruce Willis should be the coolest guy in the room in every one of those scenes. And again, I mentioned them before. Every moment with Richard Grant and Sandra Bernhard, I love the way those two of them are going. Like, they're chewing scenery like crazy, but they're like, they steal every scene. Like, to the point where at the end you're like, I kind of don't want them to die. Like, I really want them to keep going, or show me more of them.
Yeah. And I even think that for the most part, even the gang, I mean, with Butterfinger's lines, as a caveat, being inappropriate. But I think that, first of all, I thought that their introduction was really funny in terms of like their names. It's Snickers, Kit Kat, Butterfinger, and Almond Joy, which is hilarious. We've got all the candies, and they're all relieved to have that because they had a more terrible series of code names before that. And like, honestly, like, those actors, they work really well together in the scenes of chaos that they sow. I mean, like, I was sad actually to see Snickers and Almond Joy go when they finally went. Like, they had to, like, it was their time to exit. But I actually thought, like, overall, like, the chemistry of the supporting cast together talking. I mean, even when like Snickers and Almond Joy handed Butterfingers the book and he starts reading it out loud, and they're like, to yourself, in your head, like, it was a good line reading of that, right? Like, just like the real annoyance with him. You're like, oh my God, just please be quiet. So I think, like, in general, like, the cast is the reason why there's any joy to be found out of this farcical film, because it's not. And I even think like Willis and Aiello have good chemistry together when they're on screen. Like, not everything lands, but I do think that they have a really good rapport. And you believe that they've been friends for a long time. You really believe in this relationship. And that definitely helps the film as well,
Well,
So,
that's because they were.
yeah.
Yeah, they were friends in real life. That's how ILO got the job. More background stuff that I know. Sorry. But
which works really well for the movie.
Yeah.
Like they have a really good chemistry there. It circles back to this whole, man, I wish that someone had the clout to force them to respond to an editing pass. Like,
yeah.
Or a punch up pass, I should say. Just give them some better dialogue to work with, because like if everything was closer to like Andy McDowell's character and like the jokes that are sort of like built on the like taking Catholicism as like a farcical level, like to the effectiveness that it is in this movie, like would be a better movie just in general. It's just, I just want punching up of all the dialogue, and the fact that the two characters who should like the best bond in this movie, like Bruce Willis and Jenny Ayo, like they don't have the best dialogue to go with it. Like the chemistry's good.
Yeah, just the chemistry, really.
Yep.
Yeah. I do appreciate that they did give Corcoran some time to do some martial arts. I thought that was cool. Just like I just like, oh, that's cool. I mean,
Yep.
he didn't do anything a lot with it, but it was like fun that they like let him display that and kind of give a moment for that, like a little nod. And I also agree that Grant and Bernhard were doing the most, and I actually really appreciated it, because if they weren't the over the top villains that they played, this movie definitely wouldn't have worked. Like they needed to be at that high crazy level all of the time in order to make this work in any way, shape, or form.
Yep. I agree.
And we haven't actually brought up Alfred the Butler, just who I want to shout out, just because of that Street Fighter energy. I was like, man, there's some Vega stuff going on here.
His weapon was very cool. His weapon was very, very cool.
Yeah.
And we got introduced to it very early on.
Right. Those retracting goddamn knives. That yes, very cool.
Very, very cool.
Like, maybe that's the thing. Like, if I knew that this movie just devolved into Street Fighter from the very beginning, like if it was Hudson Hawk, the World Warrior.
Maybe that should be like if on the streaming service, it's like, think about Street Fighter as you're watching this movie and everything will be better.
Right.
So, yeah.
Hadouken!
Yeah.
Anyway, so I think we have hit a good spot here, however, where we should take a pause and we should shout out one of the shows on our network. Maybe Long Live the Legion, just throwing that one out there as a suggestion for what the ad might be. We'll find out what our editor goes with when ads roll. But when we come back, we will talk about what could have been done at the time of production. And I have a feeling that's going to be a collaborative one on this one, but we shall see.
Hey, Jay.
Hey, Jim.
You're a fan of the Legion of Superheroes, right?
Yeah, I've been reading their adventures for decades.
Me too. It was tough at first with all the characters, but now I think I'm an expert.
It's not too hard to get into the Legion. And to make it even easier, we have a podcast called Long Live the Legion. We talk about different aspects of all its history to help you out.
So whether you're a new reader in the Legion Academy, or have your own flight ring, or anywhere in between, a Long Live the Legion podcast should be on your playlist.
And we're back. All right, Jay. So we have a rule and we have an ethos on the show. And the ethos is that we are trying to be realistic to the time of production. So things like, let's be honest here, like the Bruce Willis of it all, we got to have a really good explanation if we're going to like try to force that one. Like how is this movie getting made, period? Like kind of level of like working on it. And I realize that like we're pushing the limits of reality just by virtue of the nature of the game, but we are just trying to like see how clever we can be and how few strings we pull on this one. Meanwhile, the actual rule of the show is that I am not allowed to go before Sam. So Sam can go first. Sam can go second. I can go second or third. I just can't go first because I can't precede Sam in this situation. So you can go first if you want, or this could be a very big collaborative thing, because like my notes are very much just like fucking punch up script here like that. And as we've established, might not really work to be able to override the power of the stardom of Willis and Io. How do you want this to go?
Let's start with Sam. I think that's the best way to go, because I don't want to go first either, because I'm the one who's watched this movie multiple times and has many thoughts. So
oh boy, this movie was really hard for me to try to figure out how I would fix it. I honestly don't know, because this is like one of those weird films where I kind of like, is this good? No. Is it bad though? No. Like, it is like one of those films where like I think that Case is right in the fact that the jokes needed to land more. They needed to be punched up. But in general, I don't mind that they're trying to have heart. And I don't necessarily mind tonal shifts as much. I think for the American market, again, I said that this probably would work in Hong Kong because it would, but because I've seen some really crazy stuff. But I think for the American market, they needed to decide whether they wanted this to be really like more cartoony, or if they wanted it to be more violent, because there are some really shocking, violent moments in this film that are kind of like literally my husband and I were sitting there, we're like, whoa. And it's not because it was like grotesquely violent. It's just the violence came out of nowhere. Like, it was unexpected. Like the first scene where the parole officer is double crossed by the butler, where we learn about a very cool weapon up his sleeve, the retractable knives. That happened so quickly. He's just like, I got your cut for you. And then he just slashes his throat. And it's like, holy moly. And so I think that this movie goes from like diabolical violence to Looney Tunes violence. Like, and it can't make up its mind what it's going to be, like whether it's going to be one or the other. I actually think that it should lean into the farcical. I don't want to get rid of the blades, but I think maybe the cut could just be somewhere else. Maybe not across his neck, maybe not such a shocking slash. I just think that the movie has more merit in leaning into the joke and going more Mel Brooks and going more towards like the funny slapstick Pink Panther realm, because it's already there. We already have the jazz elements. I actually like that, like, these two men have the timing of the song so well that they can sing it to themselves to it. Like, I actually was like, oh, it's a musical? Like my husband was laughing at me, but I think that that's kind of like one of those things where I think if they had leaned into it, at least the feeling of like the audience could have stayed into the moment. Would I have missed the you can't go to your hat convention later? No, because honestly, I had to rewind that and I was like, what is that joke? Like, I was like, wait, what did he say? I was like, oh, is that common? Hat conventions. So I just think that in terms of that, like the jokes need to be punched up, but also I would cut my losses and kind of pull back on some of the more bloody. I would keep most of the explosions. I would keep anything that Acme would do in the film. Okay, like I literally, even the stabbing, like with the injectables, the syringes, I would keep that because we don't really see a lot of gore in that. That still feels like Looney Tune to me. But all of like the cutting, the slicing, the stabbing, I might take out. I would keep like guns ricocheting. I would play up like the scene in the bar. Like I said, we can shoot the cappuccino, fine. We're gonna go straight to comedy. We can even keep the bottle because I think that's still like very Looney Tunes-esque. But I think that when the cup breaks, you got to see someone in the background. Like it's got to feel more like Naked Gun or any of those movies like Airplane. So like the prop has to play through. So like if it shoots there's someone in the
like the
background
Mel Brooks that you
right,
said before, like
exactly.
that's exactly the tone
Mel
there. Yeah,
Brooks, Airplane, all of those like someone in the background and him just sauntering up. Because the thing is that Bruce Willis is charming. So play up that charm and let him still be that charming straight man to like the ridiculousness that's happening around him. And I think that that is going to keep the tone where you want it and kind of just you can keep the bookend. And yes, Iola has to live. He has to live because that makes the movie work. The shrug at the end, like, that's what happened. Perfect ending. Like, that's fine. But I think if we lean into that, maybe hire Mel Brooks to punch this up and put him on set and put more star power than Bruce Willis on set with a comedy legend. And maybe we fix this movie. All right, my turn over because that's all I got.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, you
My
covered a few
answer is
things.
Mel Brooks. Call Mel Brooks in to slap Bruce Willis around, and he'll be fine.
I can't picture Mel Brooks and Joel Silver being in a room together. So that
No,
would
I
be
can't either. I cannot either.
so
Not at
if you
all.
can't get Brooks, get Lloyd Kaufman.
Nice.
He won't give a fuck.
Case, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I can go, but it's because I feel like I'm such a fucking hack right now. I've got nothing in terms of like legitimate changes that I think like could actually occur. I loved the suggestion of the animated opening because like my notes were just like fucking lose the Da Vinci scene, but like it was upon suggesting that it was like animated in a Rocky and Bullwinkle style, I all of a sudden like completely reframed that in my brain and I'm like, no, you know what, that's actually so much better. That fixes so much of what felt unnecessary. Because if you were like, here's a movie I'm surprised we haven't actually brought up yet / series of books. The Da Vinci Code is a scenario that is similar in like very big broad strokes to this, like a lost machine of Da Vinci or a codex of Da Vinci is available, and we have to solve puzzles to get to it. Now the puzzles are very different, and one is more cerebral, but it's like I hesitate to like really emphasize that, but was pitched as being like a cerebral thing. Like you were supposed to be like, I'm so clever because I'm keeping up with the book is how that was supposed to work. I think that that's what I was expecting when I started watching this movie. And even the fact that even the weird Mel Brooksian flashback didn't dissuade me of that idea. I think just pushing it just a little bit further helps a lot there. I think that, yeah, they just need someone to punch up the script. It's just there's, and I realize that like in terms of just being allowed to sort of say what they think is like a good one-liner or so forth is going to dominate a lot of that. But like, and again, I know how Willis is when he has someone to come in and punch up the script. Because again, we brought up An Evening with Kevin Smith, and we know like in that he talks about his Die Hard 4 experience. And so on the one hand, if it is the appropriate writer who is able to flatter Willis appropriately, and so like we just need to pick someone who is so fucking charming and funny that he's able to suggest things that Willis finds funny and actually are funny, then that would have been possible. But I don't know who that writer was at the time. Shane Black?
That's not a bad call, actually.
That's actually not a bad thought right there.
Yeah.
And wouldn't have been out of the question. Yeah. Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, that's not a bad one. Because that's one I was struggling with, because I agree with Sam completely. They needed a better director. And I agree with you completely. They needed better writers. Giving these two guys who weren't even 30 and had done like one movie or two movies and putting them into this situation. I don't know if it's Mel Brooks, but I think if you had said we're going to get Shane Black to write this and he knows how to deal with egos, and if they had, I'm trying to think of a comedy director at the time who would have actually agreed to do this, who would have been smart enough to film each scene 3 different ways. Like one of, let's do what's on the page. Let's just get this down so we have a base. Okay, now let's have some fun with it. And I don't think the director knew to like, hey, here's how we do this. And it's great. It's easy for me to say this because, it's the Judd Apatow method that we've all seen work over and over again. And I don't know in 91 if they knew that. But yeah, like that's where I start. Or like Ivan Reitman. Like there's a guy, like as a director, he's big enough that you could have said, okay, here's a big comedy director. He did movies that you loved, like Stripes and like Ghostbusters, and he gets the comedy element of it. And he also knows how to shoot this, and he knows how to handle it. So, because you can't replace Willis, you can't replace Aiello. You've got to have somebody better in charge. Can anybody think of any other names while we're just completely spitballing guys?
No, but I like this. I like a Shane Black writing pass with the Ivan Reitman in the director's seat, like that. Like that is some big pivots. But I feel like this is a movie where the writing and directors are probably more flexible than the stars and producers.
I'll give you another director name, Carl Reiner. Like he's done all the Steve Martin stuff. He knows farce. He knows big, broad comedy. He would have never put up with Willis's shit, but like that's the kind of guy who could set, or even like Rob Reiner, go with his son, like somebody who's big enough that Willis has to listen to him. And that, I mean, you're like, look, the budget was already insane. It's like you spend the money before rather than waste it later.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is like the benefit of it being such a big star-driven movie, that the budget gives us a little bit of flexibility in terms of our conversation here. Like it isn't hamstrung by that. So some of these pitches are not insane. Like they're not out of the question. Like that you could have Shane Black come in.
And I'll give you another one as well. Like, we've talked about so much about how we didn't know what kind of movie this was when we first started watching it. But imagine if it said Bruce Willis in a Ivan Reitman movie. That's a comedy. Like, I don't even have to think about it. I know exactly what this is going to be. So I'm going in expecting silly. I'm not expecting, right? Whereas like directed by Michael Lehman, you're like, I have no idea what I'm getting because I don't know who this guy is.
Right.
Right.
And it's called Hudson Hawk, which just like feels like it's going to be an action movie.
Yeah. And it was marketed as an action movie. Like they sold it as an action movie, which is the other reason why everybody was pissed off.
Right.
Yeah. So anything else? Any other suggestions before I start rambling?
No, go for it. Because like I said, I feel like just a giant hack right now. Like I am a traitor to my own premise.
So I don't think so. This is one of those movies, as Sam said, it's so hard to figure out, and especially when you're tied with Willis too. So I mentioned the animated stuff. I think we solve a lot of problems if right from the beginning we say it's a PG-13 movie. Because now we have to go into the farce. We don't get the big bloody violence. We've got to, and it's the early 90s where it's literally in our movie just because they're saying fuck over and over and over again. And if you just get rid of that, you could say like, yeah, it's not Die Hard. This is for a younger audience. And again, you're getting the message across. And I think if they had said that from the beginning, this is a PG movie. The other one as well is you lean into the friendship of Willis and Aiello. So like the one scene that I thought worked the worst was the Vatican theft, because Aiello's not in it. He's in the first theft. He's in the third scene where they go attack the castle. But I think the second one, because you want those two, like that should be one of the strengths of the movie. Like we're here to see these two guys hang out. And as we're punching up dialogue, it's more chance to punch it up. And then we also get another song, which, you know, I think we all wanted as well.
Right.
Right. So I want that. I want him in there because he kind of disappears. And and then he kind of shows up. Yep, I screwed you over. And okay, like why? Like what's going on? Whereas if he had been there from the beginning, and then maybe we can lean into a triangle, right? With him and Andy McDowell and Bruce Willis once go. Like there's so much more you could have done there.
Mm-hmm.
And it never made sense. Like, is he working with the Mayflowers? Okay, why is he betraying them? Okay, what's going on? Like, I mean, again, the movie doesn't make sense anyways, but at least that way you're sort of straightening it out. Like you're simplifying it, right? And I think if you just said to the two of them, like, we're gonna give you I'm going to go really old school, and I apologize. Have you ever seen The Thin Man? The really old movies?
No.
Okay, William Powell, Myrna Loy. Like I'm going black and white. Sam, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Okay. Those movies are what the dialogue should have been in this, where it's literally just and there's almost no time for breathing, and it's just comedy. Like it's just boom, 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 boom. And it's super funny. And like when you mentioned Johnny Dangerously, that's the other thing I was thinking. This should just be a like rapid fire dialogue. And that's how these movies should be, except when they're singing, of course. So when these two are together, it's just, you know, go, 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 go. And, you know, if you get somebody like Shane Black, or you get a writer, I mean, I hate to pull out Moonlighting, but if you got the guy who wrote Moonlighting, because that's kind of what they were doing, and just said, hey, we're going to do this. Again, then the audience knows what they're getting. And I think it's a more fun film.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Those are my big ones. Like it's just make it a buddy movie, make it have some more fun with it, make it for kids, like make it so that you can watch it with your 10-year-old and you don't feel bad about it. Case, you're going to appreciate this. Like you're going to get movies as your kids get older and you're going to go, oh, I can watch it with them. This is awesome. If they had done that with this, like, and it's a movie for adults, but you can still watch with kids, it would have been perfect. I think it would have been, well, not perfect. It would have been much better. So,
yeah, no, I think you really nailed two very big points. The rating, prize, like we talked about the violence, but yeah, like toning that down certainly does a lot for this movie. And then yeah, I actually had a note that the fact that the robberies or cons that they pull together with musical numbers doesn't hit the rule of three. We only get two, and that we needed one more. And so like, yeah, that being the Vatican it makes a lot of sense. Like, so you hit like just completely the nail on the head for those two points, like just dramatically right there. And I think, yeah, I bravo to you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I will take my virtual bow now. And then, so yeah, no. I mean, I hate to say I've spent way too much time thinking about this movie, but I've probably spent way too much time thinking about this movie. So.
Right. Well, now I'm going to be thinking more about this movie because it's going to be lingering in my brain as we put this out into the world with podcast time. So I'm going to have to like listen to clips, and I'm going to listen to the episode, and I'm going to be thinking about this goddamn movie, which is frustratingly weird, but interesting, fascinating, but flawed. Exactly what we talk about on this show.
Yep. Yep. And that's why I picked it, the fascinating but flawed part of it. So yeah, it's I'm just glad we didn't have a podcast where you two came in and said, why the hell did you pick this film? This is so horrible. I couldn't get through it. So thank you.
Yeah. No, there's only been one movie where I've been like truly angry at the person for making me watch it, and that was Master of Disguise.
Oh, I thankfully never saw it, but I feel like I did. I worked with a guy, and speaking of movies with kids, his kid loved it, so he had to watch that movie every day. And he would come into work and just quote it.
Oh man.
And to the point where I'm like, I think I've seen this movie and I don't need to see it because it sounds horrible.
Oh.
But
oh,
yeah, he
no.
would, yeah. So
oh no. Oh no. Just my experience with my daughter right now being obsessed with the material that she is. Oh no, I can't imagine if it was Master of the No, you're breaking the brand again.
Sorry. I got Cars. That was my movie that I had to watch 50 times, to the point where like 10 years ago, I could probably just recite the dialogue as we were watching it. That's better than Master of Disguise. So I'll take Cars over that.
Yeah.
But by the time you've watched it 30 times, it doesn't matter what the movie is. You're either going to like it or you're just going to hate it. Whether you like, you'll find new joke. You'll find ways to entertain yourself. So,
as like, apparently you did with this movie.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. I'll go with that.
Yeah. So on that note, Jay, thank you for bringing this movie.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. This has been a great pleasure. And like I say, I have been, from the moment I discovered this podcast, I was secretly, well, maybe not so secretly, hoping that you were going to ask me to do this. Not Hudson Hawk, but just to be on here. So I do really appreciate this. It's been a pleasure and an honor for me. So
well, it's been great having you on. Sam.
Yes.
Before we forget, how would you rate this on your chore scale?
Okay, I think that this is a great movie to have in the background while you are sweeping or mopping your floor, in and out of the room, that kind of thing. I don't think this is like one that you want to sit around for, like folding laundry, but I do think that this is a good, like, just background, because you're going to get some nice singing. You're going to get some good songs. You might walk in during one of the like really funny jokes and then walk out for all the bad ones. So I think this is like a general, like, walking around your house in the background kind of movie, but not for a sitting chore, for a moving chore, washing dishes, like just like you're in and out of the living room kind of thing. Yeah. So that's where it's on. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like the specificity of that. That it makes a lot of sense, because like, yeah, you know, if you're vacuuming or something and you're like, you're able to listen to it, and then like you turn off the vacuum, you're back in, and like, yeah.
Like, so sometimes, like, a joke about rape is coming, put on the vacuum, put it on loud, walk into the other room, get something else, awkward love scene. You're like, oh, that's okay. I've got some garbage to take downstairs, and I'm going to come back up, and we're going to be back in it. We're going to be jumping out windows and, getting saved by the Catholic Church, and it's going to be hilarious. It's going to be amazing. And then, we're going to break into a castle and sing a great song. And, then we're going to leave when a dog gets, thrown out a window, that kind of stuff. It's an in and out kind of chore movie.
I like that. That's good.
All right. Well, yeah, I think that covers our conversation about Hudson Hawk. Again, Jay, thank you for bringing this. Thank you for being here. Why don't you tell the listeners at home where people can find you, follow you, and what you've got going on?
Perfect. So first of all, I've got a bi-weekly podcast called Long Live the Legion, where we talk about the Legion of superheroes. We are celebrating our first anniversary. Really excited that we've been going for so long. It's a blast. We're having more fun than we did before. It's me and Jim Fetters. And if you've ever been interested in the Legion of Superheroes, and you probably will be because they have a new book coming out, ours is the podcast to listen to. Speaking of the Legion, I also write a weekly column where I go back and reread and review the old issues. That is at jmlonglivethelegion.blogspot.com. If you want to find me on Blue Sky, I am at jmckiernan.bsky.social. And if you find me on Discord, and I'm on the POV network, and I'm also on the Legion Discord server. Or if you want to find me on Reddit, my username is Drake Burrows.
Yes, because no one can guess who your favorite Legionnaire is.
No, not at all. No one will have a clue. Sam, you want to try?
Well, just let the joke linger. Anyway.
Yeah.
No, everyone should check out your blog, but everyone definitely should check out Long Live the Legion. It's a really fun podcast. I've been on a couple of times now. It is a show that because I knew Jim before the show launched. So when he told me that it was happening, I was like, that is fantastic, because I love the Legion of Superheroes. I think it is a really cool superhero team that is so comic book, is wonderful in that regard. And you guys do a fantastic job breaking down these like facets of this Byzantine lore of these characters in a way that is very easy to follow. And so it's good conversations that you guys have. And I'm so glad that you're part of the network, and that's really, really cool stuff.
Thank you very much. So thanks.
Sam, where can people find you and follow you?
Well, they can find me whenever these episodes drop, or app episodes. And other than that, I am lurking on our Discord. I may not say anything, but I see what you're saying about us. I see it, and I appreciate it. And if there are any complaints about anything I said today, or in any past episodes, or in any future episodes, you can take all of those complaints directly to the Case, and you can find Case at...
Well, if you have the pre-crime disputes about the future that you want to bring my way, you can find me. The Discord is a really good place to find me. So the Certain POV Discord, you can find a link in our show notes or on our website, certainpov.com. That is without a doubt the easiest place to contact. I'm very approachable there, and I try to interject wherever I can in the conversations, but I'm certainly reading everything just because I habitually look at my notifications like that. Otherwise, you can find me on other social media platforms at Case Aiken, with the exception of Instagram, where I am holding on for dear life to my AIM screen name from high school, which is wow. I just botched it I never do that. Oh my God. Which is Quetzalcoatl 5, Quetzalcoatl 5, because I was pretentious in high school as well. Anyway, so you can find me there. You should also check out our Patreon. We have a Patreon going for the show now, and it's wonderful that we have people actually helping, keep the lights on. That's a really awesome thing, that we actually are getting a little bit of revenue, and it'd be nice if we had more. So you should consider signing up for it. Even if you sign up at the free tier, we are trying to put out a ton of good content. I do 2 essays a week, one on a nerdy topic of my choice and another on a TTRPG topic. But if you are signed up at the paid tiers, you get advanced clips of episodes, you get advanced screenings of the various videos that are going up, and at the highest tiers, at the executive producer tier, you get shout outs at the end of every episode, such as our executive producer tier, which is today Micah McCaw, Carter Hallett, Sean Muir, Lee Gregor, Memento Young, Logan Crowley, Joe Mastropiero, Casey and Nancy Aiken, Adam Samter, and Keith Lettinen. If you would like to join those ranks, please consider it. We would love to have you in that support. It means the world to us. Otherwise, you can find this show at wherever you get your podcasts. Statistically, it is probably on YouTube these days, because that's where I see a lot of the views coming in. And that means you are aware that the YouTube channel has a ton of great stuff from Certain POV, all kinds of videos, all kinds of stuff that I've been doing. And you can find it all at youtube.com/certainpovmedia. Anyway, that is, I think, enough shilling for the moment. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Tune in next time for our next episode. Sam, what have we got coming up next time?
Next time, we'll be talking about Highlander 2, The Quickening. But until then, if you enjoyed this, pass it on.
Thanks for listening to Certain Point of View's Another Pass podcast. Don't miss an episode. Just subscribe and review the show on iTunes. Just go to certainpov.com.
Another Pass is a Certain POV production. Our hosts are Sam Alisea and Case Aiken. The show is edited by Sophia Ricciardi. Our logo and episode art is by Case Aiken. Our intro theme is by Vin Macri, and our outro theme is by Matt Brogan.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.